Beth, my sister, had always been a force of nature. She meant well, but she never knew when to step back. So when she crossed the line during my divorce, everything fell apart. Let me take you back to the beginning. I had been married to Cole for 3 years, but our relationship spanned 6. These past few months were the hardest I'd ever faced. The decision to end a marriage isn't one that anyone takes lightly, and for me, it was a deeply personal and painful journey. I had chosen to keep the reasons for our separation private, sharing only with those who needed to know. Yet, Beth seemed to believe that she was owed more than just the headlines. She seemed to think that the role of the concerned sister gave her license to pry into corners of my life I'd rather keep in the dark. The first time I told my family about the separation, I was met with a spectrum of reactions. Some offered their quiet support, others asked if there was anything they could do. But Beth, oh Beth, she cried harder than I did, her sobs echoing through the room, leaving me feeling like I was the one who needed to comfort her. It was strange, unsettling even. Her tears felt misplaced, as if she was mourning something personal, something more than just the end of my marriage. Days turned into weeks, and Beth's calls became more frequent, her questions more probing. "Is there someone else?" she asked one evening, her voice laced with curiosity. "Was it him or you? Did you try counseling?" Each question was like a needle, poking at the thin veil of composure I was desperately trying to maintain. I told her time and again, "Beth, I don't want to discuss it." But she pressed on, wrapping her persistence in the guise of wanting to support me. "I just want to understand," she would insist, "so I can be there for you." I wanted to believe her intentions were pure, but there was an undercurrent to her words, a need to dissect the situation, to understand every piece of the puzzle. It was exhausting, and each interaction left me more drained than the last. I felt like I was standing on a precipice, trying to keep my balance while the ground shifted beneath my feet. Then came the day that changed everything. Beth called, her voice unusually upbeat. "I reached out to Cole," she said casually, as if she were telling me she'd run into an old friend. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. "Why?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Her explanation was simple, almost naive. I felt bad. He looked lonely on social media, and I didn't think it was fair that we all just cut him off. I was blindsided. Cole and Beth had never been close. Their interactions were limited to polite exchanges at family gatherings, nothing more. Her reaching out to him felt like a betrayal, an invasion. That was a serious overstep, I told her, my voice trembling with a mix of hurt and anger. But she disagreed, saying that divorce affects more than just the people directly involved. Her words left me cold. It was as if she'd taken it upon herself to mediate, to bridge a gap that didn't need bridging. I felt exposed, my private life laid bare for her to inspect and judge. I started to question everything. Was my pain not enough for her to understand that I needed space, needed time to heal on my own terms? The following week, Beth called again. This time her tone was different, cautious, almost apologetic. "I think you're making a mistake," she began. "Have you considered a separation instead of a full divorce?" That was it. That was the moment I realized that Beth wasn't going to stop. She wasn't going to respect the boundaries I had so clearly set. I took a deep breath, the kind that you take when you're about to do something you know will change everything. "Beth," I said, my voice steady but firm, "you don't get to have an opinion on my marriage or my divorce. I need you to stop." The silence that followed was deafening. It stretched on, filling the space between us with unspoken words, unshed tears. When she finally spoke, her voice was small, wounded. "You're being cruel," she said. "I'm the one who actually wants to help you through this." We haven't spoken since that day. It's strange, the silence between us. It feels heavy, like a presence in the room, a constant reminder of what was lost. I've spent countless nights replaying our conversations, wondering if I could have done something differently, if there was a way to make her understand without pushing her away. But every time I circle back to the same conclusion. I needed to protect myself, to carve out a space where I could heal without interference. In the quiet moments when the world falls away and it's just me and my thoughts, I wonder if Beth will ever see my side of things. If she'll ever understand that sometimes the best way to support someone is to stand back and let them find their way. Divorce is a deeply personal journey, one that reshapes your world in ways you never imagined. It's a process of unraveling, of letting go of a future you once held close. It's painful and messy, and sometimes it feels like you're walking through a storm with no end in sight. But I'm learning to find strength in the solitude, to embrace the quiet as a space for growth. As for Beth, I hope that one day we can find our way back to each other. I hope she can see that my decision to push her away wasn't about shutting her out, but about creating a boundary that I desperately needed. Family dynamics are complex, and love doesn't always look the way we expect it to. But I hold on to the hope that time will heal, that understanding will grow, and that maybe, just maybe, we'll find a new way to be sisters again. In the days that followed my conversation with Beth, I found solace in the mundane. There was a peculiar comfort in the predictability of my morning routine, the gentle hum of the coffee maker, the rhythmic clinking of my spoon against the porcelain mug as I stirred in cream, the way the sunlight streamed through the kitchen window, casting a warm glow over everything. These small rituals grounded me, offering a fleeting sense of normalcy amidst the chaos of my unraveling life. But beneath that veneer of calm, my thoughts churned relentlessly. I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal that lingered like a stubborn shadow. Even as I tried to focus on work or lose myself in a book, Beth's words echoed in my mind, a constant reminder of the rift between us. I replayed our last conversation over and over, dissecting each moment, each word, searching for a hint of resolution or understanding that seemed just out of reach. The silence between us was oppressive, a tangible weight that settled heavily on my shoulders. It wasn't just the absence of her voice on the other end of the line, it was the absence of her presence, her laughter, her unsolicited advice that I could never quite bring myself to fully appreciate until now. I missed her, despite everything, but I knew that reaching out too soon might unravel the fragile boundary I'd fought so hard to establish. I found myself retreating more and more into my own thoughts, grappling with the reality of my situation. The divorce loomed large, a spectre that colored every aspect of my life. It was like navigating a labyrinth of emotions, grief, anger, relief, and fear, each turn revealing a new facet of my shattered heart. I was exhausted from the constant emotional upheaval, from the effort it took to simply put one foot in front of the other each day. One afternoon, as I sat on the porch, sipping my coffee and watching the world go by, my phone buzzed with a message. It was from my mother, a simple text checking in, asking if I wanted to come over for dinner that weekend. I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the screen. The prospect of facing my family, of potentially running into Beth, filled me with a sense of dread. But I also knew that isolating myself wasn't the answer. With a deep breath, I typed out a response, agreeing to dinner. As I pressed send, I felt a flicker of something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Hope that maybe this could be a step toward healing, toward mending the fractures in my family, even if only a little. Saturday arrived with a mix of apprehension and anticipation. I spent the day oscillating between excitement and anxiety, my stomach a tangled knot of nerves. As I drove to my parents' house, I rehearsed conversations in my head, preparing for the inevitable questions, the concerned looks, the whispered exchanges that would likely pass between family members when they thought I wasn't paying attention. When I arrived, the familiar sight of my childhood home brought a rush of nostalgia. The house, with its weathered white siding and welcoming porch, stood as a testament to years of memories, both joyful and bittersweet. As I stepped through the front door, the aroma of my mother's cooking enveloped me, a comforting embrace that momentarily eased the tension in my chest. Dinner was a delicate dance of small talk and subtle glances. My parents, bless them, tried their best to maintain a semblance of normalcy, steering the conversation toward neutral topics, The weather, a recent local event, the antics of their neighbor's dog. But Beth's absence was palpable, a silent void that hung over the table like a cloud. As the evening wore on, my mother pulled me aside, her eyes filled with concern. "Have you thought about talking to Beth?" she asked gently, her voice a soft murmur. "I know things are hard right now, but maybe reaching out could help." I sighed, the weight of her words pressing down on me. "I don't know, Mom," I admitted, my voice tinged with uncertainty. I need some time to figure things out." She smiled, that warm, understanding smile that only a mother can give. "Take all the time you need, sweetheart. Just remember that we're all here for you, no matter what." Her words lingered with me long after I'd left, echoing in my mind as I drove home under the starlit sky. Maybe she was right. Maybe reaching out to Beth, opening a line of communication, could be the first step toward mending what was broken. But the thought of confronting her, of risking another confrontation, filled me with trepidation. Back at home, I settled onto the couch, pulling a worn blanket around me as I stared out the window. The city lights twinkled in the distance, a reminder that life continued to move forward, even when it felt like mine had come to a standstill. I realized then that I couldn't keep living in this limbo, couldn't keep hiding from the world and from the people who cared about me. With a deep breath, I picked up my phone, my fingers trembling slightly as I navigated to Beth's contact. For a moment I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the call button. But then, with a resolve I hadn't known I possessed, I pressed it, my heart pounding in my chest as the phone rang. As I waited for her to pick up, I took another deep breath, grounding myself in the moment. This was a step forward, a chance to rebuild, to find a new way to be sisters. And whatever happened next, I knew that I was ready to face it, ready to embrace the uncertainty and the possibility of healing. The phone rang just twice before Beth's familiar voice broke through the silence, catching me off guard with its warmth. "Hello," she said, her tone cautious, as if she too was unsure of what this call might bring. "Beth, it's me," I began, my voice barely above a whisper, as if to test the waters before diving into the depths of our strained relationship. "I've been thinking about everything." There was a pause, a breath held between us. I could almost hear her mind whirring on the other end, the cogs turning as she processed my unexpected outreach. "I've missed you," she finally said, her voice softening, the edge of hurt still evident but tempered by a flicker of hope. The relief that washed over me was palpable, a soothing balm to the tension that had been my constant companion. "I've missed you too," I admitted, the words like a confession, releasing a weight I hadn't fully acknowledged until now. "I hate how things have been between us." There was a quiet sigh from Beth, a sound that resonated with understanding. "I know I overstepped," she said, her words deliberate, filled with the kind of honesty that only comes after long introspection. "I thought I was helping, but I see now that I wasn't listening to what you really needed." Her admission was like a tentative bridge stretching between us, an acknowledgement of her missteps and a willingness to find common ground. It was what I'd been waiting to hear, a recognition of my boundaries and the pain they'd been crossed with. "Thank you for saying that," I replied, my voice steady, though my heart raced with a mix of emotions: gratitude, sadness, love. "I know you were trying to help, but I need to do this on my terms. It's been hard." Beth's response was immediate, her empathy wrapping around me like a comforting embrace. "I can't even imagine. I want to be there for you, but I'll follow your lead from now on. Let me know how I can support you without overstepping." As we spoke, a feeling of renewal swept over me. It was like the first rays of dawn breaking through the night, a reassurance that perhaps we could rebuild what was broken, stronger and more resilient than before. We talked, not about the divorce or the tangled web of emotions it wove, but about us, our shared memories, our hopes, and the simple joy of being sisters. By the time we said our goodbyes, I felt lighter, the oppressive weight that had settled over my heart lifting, replaced by a fragile yet determined sense of optimism. I knew that healing wouldn't happen overnight, that we would both have to work at it to nurture this newfound understanding. But it was a start, a chance to reclaim the bond that had always been at the heart of our relationship. As I sat in the silence that followed, I reflected on how far I'd come, not just with Beth, but in my own journey through this tumultuous chapter of my life. The divorce still loomed, a formidable presence that would take time to navigate, but I felt a newfound strength in facing it head-on. I was learning to trust myself, to honor my own needs and boundaries, and to seek out the support that truly resonated with my heart. In the end, it was about more than just mending a fractured relationship with my sister. It was about finding my own way, carving out a path that was uniquely mine, and embracing the support of those who truly understood the journey I was on. And with that realization, I felt a surge of hope, a hope that with time, patience, and love, I could not only heal, but thrive. After hanging up, a gentle calm settled over me, like the soothing whisper of a breeze after a storm. I sat there for a moment, letting the quietude seep into my bones, filling the spaces that had been rattled by the tumult of recent months. It was strange, but in that silence, I could almost sense a shift within myself, a subtle yet profound change that seemed to signal a new beginning. I thought back to my conversation with Beth, replaying her words in my mind. There was something healing in hearing her say she understood, in her willingness to respect my journey and the boundaries I had set. It was a small victory, perhaps even a fragile one, but it was mine. In that moment, I realized how much I had yearned for this, an acknowledgement of my struggle and a reaffirmation of the bond we shared. Yet, as comforting as that realization was, it also brought with it a wave of exhaustion. It was the kind of tiredness that went beyond the physical, reaching deep into the emotional reserves I'd been running on for too long. The divorce, the strain with Beth, the uncertainty of starting over, all of it had taken a toll. But now, with a glimmer of hope on the horizon, I felt the first inklings of renewal stirring within me. I decided to take some time for myself the next day, to step away from the chaos and just breathe. There was a park not too far from my apartment, a small oasis of green amidst the city's concrete sprawl. I often went there to think, to escape, to find solace in the rustling leaves and the gentle ripple of the pond. That morning, I made my way there, each step feeling like an affirmation of my choice to heal. The park was quiet, the kind of peacefulness that seemed to hold the world at bay. I found a bench near the water, settling into its familiar contours as the sounds of nature enveloped me. Ducks paddled lazily across the pond, their movements sending gentle ripples through the glassy surface. I watched them for a while, allowing the simplicity of their existence to soothe my frayed nerves. As I sat there, my thoughts drifted back to Cole, not to the pain of our parting, but to the good times, the moments that had once filled me with joy. It was bittersweet, remembering the laughter, the shared dreams, and the love that had been so real, so tangible. But I knew that holding on to those memories wasn't about clinging to the past. It was about honoring what was, even as I moved forward. In those moments of reflection, I found something unexpected, a sense of forgiveness, not just for Cole, but for myself. I realized that I had been carrying around a burden of guilt, questioning whether I had done enough, tried hard enough, loved deeply enough. It was a weight that had kept me shackled to the past, unable to fully embrace the present. But sitting there, with the sun warming my face and the gentle breeze tugging at my hair, I began to let it go. Forgiveness, I discovered, was not about absolving someone else of their actions. It was about freeing myself, allowing room for growth, for healing, for the possibility of new beginnings. And as I embraced that notion, I felt a lightness spread through me, a quiet liberation that whispered of hope and promise. The day unfolded slowly, each moment savored, each breath a reminder of resilience, and the quiet strength I was rediscovering within myself. As the afternoon sun began its descent, casting long shadows across the park, I rose from the bench, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. I was ready to face whatever came next, armed with the knowledge that I was not alone, that I had family, friends, and even myself to lean on. Returning home, I felt a sense of contentment settle over me, a peace that had been elusive for so long. The path ahead was still uncertain, the road to healing winding and unpredictable, but I was no longer afraid. I was learning to trust the journey, to believe in my own strength, and to cherish the connections that truly mattered. In the days that followed, I held on to that feeling, nurturing it, allowing it to guide me as I navigated the complexities of my new reality. I reached out to friends I had distanced myself from, reconnecting with them, finding solace in their support. I threw myself into work, finding fulfillment in the projects that had once been my passion. And in the quiet moments, I allowed myself to dream, to envision a future filled with possibility. My relationship with Beth, too, began to mend, the rift between us slowly healing as we rebuilt our bond. There were still moments of tension, times when old wounds threatened to resurface, but we faced them together, armed with a newfound understanding and respect. It wasn't always easy, but it was worth it, each step forward a testament to the strength of sisterhood and the power of forgiveness. Through it all, I learned that healing was not a destination, but a journey, a continuous process of growth and self-discovery. It was about embracing vulnerability, acknowledging pain, and finding strength in the face of adversity. And as I moved forward, I carried with me the lessons of the past, using them to forge a brighter, more hopeful future. In the end, the story of my divorce was not just about the end of a marriage, but about the beginning of a new chapter in my life. A chapter filled with courage, resilience, and the unwavering belief that I could and would thrive. If this got you, there's more coming.